we come to our first panel for the day, the art of performance-driven storytelling. Today, our expert speakers will explore how brands can master the art of building long-term connections, driving results, and fostering enduring loyalty. So please, with that, let's welcome on stage Ajay Dang, President, Head Marketing, Ultratech Cement and Aditya Birla Group Company. Abhishek Joshi, Head, Shimaru Entertainment Limited. Sri Krishnamurthy, Executive Vice President, Digital Initiatives, Head Marketing Performance, Website Social, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Saurabh Jain, CMO, Zydus Wellness, and our moderator, Devika Sharma, MMA India Board Member, VP and GM India at Glance. Can we have a round of applause for our stellar panel, ladies and gentlemen? I hope we have enough mics. Are we good? Over to you, Devika.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is this working? Thank you, MMA. Thank you, Monica, for having us here. Very excited to host this panel. So we're here to talk about how brand and creative and storytelling ties, performance-led marketing. And, to just start the panel off, I wanted to share how I feel about brands and storytelling to begin with, right? Brands actually are like living beings, right? They have values, they have a personality. People actually use brands to address different needs, but they actually feel for brands in much, much larger ways, right? And the reason for that is typically they love brands that end up being reflections of themselves in a certain way. But in today's day and age, I think every marketer is faced with budgetary challenges and is more often than not asked, what is the impact that a marketing campaign is making, right? And therefore, there is the expectation of being able to drive ROAS and therefore performance marketing through any campaign. And so to begin with, my first question to all of you is, as marketers and just as individuals, how do you feel about the role of creative and storytelling as well as performance marketing in today's day and age? And how do you think this will sort of come together or evolve in the future?
Okay. So, sorry, I had something wrong with lunch, so I'm going to contradict you at the word go. I think the point that you made, that people love brands. I think marketers should start with the assumption that nobody cares about brands, right? We love our products, we love our categories, we love our jobs because they pay our EMIs, right? So that's the piece. But if you talk to an ordinary consumer, he has a crying baby, right? He has a bad mother-in-law, right? He has tons of problems to solve. It's our job to figure out what role do we play in their life, what job in their life or what progress, and it's not their job to figure out as to how do we fit in their lives, right? It's our job to do that. Now that part is the effective storytelling. That part is the inciting, that part is the storytelling all put together. Because I believe marketers' roles are just two simple things, which is listening very carefully and storytelling. Both those things are humongously complicated. Everybody believes it's easy, and as Abhishek might tell you, everybody has a point of view after they come out of the movie that it was a good movie or bad movie. But making a great movie is, if it were everybody's cup of tea, they would have kind of stuff, right? Coming back to the point of storytelling and performance, so the insight piece, the listening piece, the storytelling piece is the important piece where we very clearly articulate as to the consumer as to what problem in her life do we solve? What are we an answer to? Because otherwise they don't care, right? They're bothered about their life. So that's the important piece. As regards performance marketing, I treat performance marketing in very agricultural terms, if I may. I treat it like harvesting, right? If we treat that, that's the only thing. If you don't seed, till the land, if you don't plow the land properly, if you don't put the seeds, don't water, don't weed, and we only want to harvest stuff, it's not going to work, right? So it has its role, but I think we've got to look at what value can we add to the consumer's life. Only then can businesses create value out of it. And storytelling, I think, is a very important piece of linking her life with how does that Venn diagram overlap with our product, our category, our brand.
And you don't feel that when the brand is addressing a particular need and telling the consumer their story, that, you know, its story, that, hey, this is what I can do for you, then the tonality or the narrative or the creative, you know, rendition of that story can invoke more than just functional satisfaction?
I think creative comes later on. I think first piece that is important is that we are so egotistical about it, that we are so busy talking about our own selves. We are so obsessed with how the third level feature in our product is the greatest thing on this earth. How we are the best product within this particular category, that's something that consumers don't care about. Sure. I think the first piece, of course, there is a great role of creativity. And the great role of creativity is to lodge how we overlap. So if I have at 3 a.m., I have a problem, and I want to be equated with that, solving that particular problem, to the greatest search engine, how do I lodge my brand and product in somebody's head, right? That's the role of creativity. But the first piece is to understand as to where does the Venn diagram meet? What role do we play? What are we an answer to? Till the time, I think, if we straight away jump to how I am better than ABC other products, how I have this sixth level feature, which the consumer neither cares nor, yeah. Creativity can do only so much. If you ask the wrong question, creativity cannot solve the answer, right?
Thank you. That's very interesting. I love the harvesting analogy. Abhishek, do you want to?
Okay. See, I have a fundamental disconnect with the art of performance-driven storytelling. I mean, being an ex-marketer, I stepped off the bus sometime back, but fundamentally, the stories and the communication should drive the media vehicles, right? But that doesn't happen. What happens in reality is the media vehicles drive the creativity and the story and the videos and static and Joby, right? मीडिया प्लान पहले बनता है, उसके बाद शूट होता है, राइट? परफॉर्मेंस में स्टोरी नहीं बिकता, परफॉर्मेंस में नैरेटिव्स बिकते हैं, और दे डू वेल, राइट? बिकॉज नैरेटिव्स आर सोल्ड, स्टोरीज आर टोल्ड. For example, how do you measure whether your particular creative for the brand or for what you are trying to sell has done well? By how much SKUs it was sold, how much subscriptions it gathered, so on and so forth. Is that the only way that the intangible can be measured? We are trying to measure content and stories are subjective, right? As we were speaking earlier, Pathan, the biggest hit, was that a good film or a bad film? I don't know. 1,000 crores. DDLJ, same. So DDLJ and Pathan, the brand was Shah Rukh Khan. What he sold was DDLJ and Pathan, right? It was the other way around. But both are very hit films. But which one was a better film? Especially in an industry which is a prepaid industry. You pay first, then you are allowed to enter and sample what you have bought. In my business, we expect consumers to convert into customers by paying a year in advance when he doesn't even know what he's going to get, right? And then he's allowed to come into the haves. Till that time, he's the have-nots. Yeah. So AWOD, or the advertising-led VOD, are people who are have-nots. We have unconsciously or unknowingly created a line between haves and have-nots. But entertainment fundamentally was born and is supposed to be democratic, right? Everybody has the right to be entertained. Who are we to decide you can watch premium? You cannot. I mean, and then we go on and measure stories, but we forget that we are not selling stories, we are selling narratives.
Okay, thank you.
So, so for us, I'm from a bank, so story has to be the factual also. We can't just put anything patan and other stuff. So we always look at customer, what the customer need. What is the customer experience they require? Okay, we built 811 part of the ecosystem where the customer, what is the customer need? He want a customer savings account. He want to do it everything online. He want to do, don't charge for my debit card. So these are the surveys we looked at it and then we narrated the story. And then we said, okay, the brand ambassador and move forward on that. Always that needs to be the brand is nothing, love. Brand love need to be required. That's what we do, we build it. And factually. Second, about the performance side of it, we always look at the data very, very carefully, right? So it's more call to action, right? That, customer has the trust broadly. We did that brand campaign. Then all the cohorts, what the consumer wants it for is it a savings account, is it a credit card, is it a PL? So how nicely you put that narrative and what is their experience and in what channel you are doing. If a customer wants it like personal loan or if I go and tell them that, you are eligible for a 30 lakh loan, 1 click you get this. That's like hot works. It has to be personalized. Otherwise it doesn't work.
So in a lot of ways, you're echoing what Ajay said, right? Which is to understand what is it that the customer needs
Correct.
and solving
Correct.
for that.
Correct.
Thank you. So, Saurabh, do you want to take that?
Sure. Devika, by the way you pitched the question, you've made it almost sound like it's about choosing between the devil and the Dead Sea. I look at it slightly differently. I think it's having your cake and eating it too. And what I mean by that is, it's not an either or question. It's more about where do you draw the line. And why that is relevant is because ultimately, irrespective of the business, whether that is movies or building a production house or driving a brand, a bank, marketing a bank to selling products which are B2B, B2C versus something like hardcore consumer portfolio that I handle across the brands, some of them borderline OTC products. Ultimately, it's about delivering the short term and the long term, right? And therefore, at any given point in time, you will always have to make that choice whether you are investing in creativity or whether you are investing in performance marketing or ROAS, however you want to pitch that. Having said that, therefore, and I believe, if you don't have a long-term vision, if you're not building the brand for the long term, then short term may be irrelevant after a point. And therefore, for me, creativity or storytelling always comes first. And strategically, therefore, when you do your annual plans or when you plan for the future, that is what you should have a clear view of. The performance marketing or driving ROAS is, of course, a very, very important thing in today's age and time where, consumers are tempted with some offers, something here and there, some, reaching out to them in the right kind of cohorts. But that is secondary. And therefore, what we do is we always keep creativity and storytelling at the center of everything. And then as a step 2, you make decisions based on data that is available. So make data-driven decisions and be agile. If you know that certain level of creativity or storytelling is not working, then basically you change. You see what is not working, what is working, and you accordingly make a decision, then, change as per what data tells us, which is also very, very important, both for the short term and the long term. The last point, and I think the last bit to that would also be, partner with the experts. Because I think the days of raising the village, raising a child by yourself does not happen. You need a lot of external experts and partners to do a great job at it. I'll give you an example, even for some of the performance marketing campaigns, what we have seen, and again, this is insights coming from our partners, we did not develop that in-house, is that even for some of the performance marketing campaigns, they are more effective and efficient if it is driven through creativity rather than just putting something out there. So that's, and I believe, you need to keep playing that game day in, day out to be able to achieve and deliver the long-term and short-term objectives.
So while you are using storytelling to drive performance as an outcome, you're also saying that it's critical to keep an eye on the long-term brand love, so to speak, although there may not be any love.
Absolutely, and you see that, and I'll move out of any of the discussion that we have had, but you see there have been multiple sunrise industries, right? Ultimately, whether that's, say, now fintech companies, a lot of D2C brands and all of that, all of them can win in the short term by using the hacks which are commonly available, democratically available. But in the long term, only the initiatives or the organizations which have succeeded are the ones which have been able to create a brand, have been able to tell stories which are really, really powerful and impactful. There are multiple cases where D2C brands or fintech brands which were fairly successful at one point in time have actually declined over the next few years because they did not invest in building the brand.
I agree. Ajay, if I can come back to you, and you said earlier that it's critical to start by asking the right question, and I'm not sure what I'm going to ask you next is entirely right, because it relates to cement as a category, which I find fairly complex, right? Because I consume cement in, frankly, every aspect of my existence, right? The house I live in, the office I work in, the infrastructure I use. Yet I haven't bought a bag of cement in my life, right? So how do you look at marketing for a category like that? And what is the role that creative and storytelling will play in that? And how does that sort of, dial back to performance of a campaign?
So I'm not saying just because I'm on a podium, I'm not saying it, you've got to ponder over the questions. So when I first took on the role, I think for the first 3 months, maybe HR might have gotten a few complaints because I kept asking the question as to why does somebody build a home, right? And I remember distinctly I had a piece of paper on one side, reasons not to build a home, and on one side, reasons to build a home. This list, I remember, was 24 long. This I hadn't started with, right? And till the time you are able to articulate the right question, you will not get the right answer. Because till that point of time, if you see cement advertising so far, I'm not so sure for everybody kind of out here, you guys are, like Devika said, not buyers of cement, but users of cement product and so on and so forth. Our industry is, our business, at least Ultratech business, is about 70% B2C, and about 2/3 of that is rural, right? So, and we don't market to people like us because we directly deal with people who buy us kind of stuff, right? So, I think it is important to figure out as to what role do I play for the fellow who was building their home, as to why would he choose? And at that point of time, all that cement marketing meant was hyperboles of people battering rams and bulls running into walls to demonstrate hyperboles of strength, which very frankly the consumer couldn't care less about. It was a lot of navel gazing within the category and senseless, I think, arms race in a direction as to who can be more funny and who can be more absurd about strength. I think we've stepped back and asked the question as to what does this mean? What does home mean for an average Indian? We found out that, and some of it is not big data, some of it is common sensical insights that sit on your nose. We found today, average home builder builds their home at 35, which compounded my question, why does a 35-year-old fellow who's just gotten married, possibly has just a kid, and who's just started work, why would he get into a project which he knows it's a once-in-a-lifetime project? Why does he get into it? Stuff that he knows nothing about, stuff that it's too complicated, he doesn't even have the money about it. What's going on? I think till the time we could take away all the screen of all the rationalizations where people said, I'm building it for my kids, I'm building it for financial security, I'm building it for the independence. A lot of it, very frankly, was just rationalizations that consumers were giving us. Till the time we zeroed in as to what's the real reason, what role it plays, and till the time we zeroed in that it's one of the most important project in his life because it defines his identity, his competence, his role in society, till the time we identified what role does cement play in the biggest project of his life, while the cost might be 15%, but the importance that they give because of its irreversibility is so high, till the time we couldn't figure out as to why we are better than somebody else. I think that was an irrelevant question from our point of view. We said that we've got to help this fellow who is in a crisis, who is going to get into a project which is so complicated, so difficult, about which he doesn't even have a roadmap. So apart from giving him cement, we said we've got to help this fellow achieve what he or she wants to achieve. I think that gave the brand a huge amount of lift, and I'm not so sure everybody knows the story, but I think we've grown from, in the last 7 years, we've grown from about 25,000 crores to last year we finished at nearly 70,000 crores. Yeah, so I think it's till the time you touch the human insight, and very frankly, if you asked me what's the great chemical composition of cement, I possibly would be the wrong person to even answer that. You've got to go out and figure that reason.
And how does this insight, so again, you're outlining the right questions you asked, right? And therefore the key insights you were able to understand about why people were building homes. How does this actually sort of translate into your campaigns? And how do you then look at storytelling and...
So simple piece, I think when you went across to people who had, I think 6 months ago built their homes, I think we found a pattern, which was a very interesting pattern. One, I think nobody talked about their home. They talked about the war stories, what we internally call war stories, right? These are how, so it's almost like a soldier who's fought a 1971 war as to how he navigated this entire process. So we got that this story was not about anything else. It was a story of his competence and his identity. Second, we got this interesting piece, and men among us will realize, I think this project does what no other project does in their life. Gets them the respect and recognition of the one man or one person who personifies the society, their father, right? Now, it's a unique project. You don't get that by buying a car. You don't get that by marrying or having a kid. So that's how important it is, right? Now, if you have the right insight, I think the stories tell themselves, right? There is a great role of creativity, and I think it often, is the one which takes a dry insight and I think does the trick. But if you've hit the right spot, if you are on the right emotion, if you are on the right meaning to the consumer, I think stories tell themselves.
Okay, thank you. Abhishek, if I can come to you next. You're in a vastly different category, right, which everybody consumes. And Shemaroo as a brand needs no introduction. We've all grown up with it. So what is the role that you see that creative and storytelling plays? And what are the sort of key goals that you would drive? And how does performance sort of factor into this?
If I can, Devika, say, I think I found some commonality in his problem versus ours. So you said somebody buys stuff and they don't even know what they're getting. The same holds for me true, right? So, yeah.
So in a way, every industry is a prepaid industry because you buy your brand and then you use it. You don't know whether it is, whether it will hold for 100 years or not. Okay, why do we buy anything that we buy? For two reasons. need and want. Correct?
Absolutely.
Incidentally, everyone, my co-panelists here, you want to build a house, but for that you need cement, right? You need your primary bank account. You need to have medicines. In my business, you don't need to be entertained. You want to be entertained. And want is aspirational. It's premium. After your three constituents of being alive are met, uske baad you will look into what, if you have spare cash or money, then you look for entertainment, going out, holidays and all that, right?
Sure.
That's a want. When the business comes to want, then the art of storytelling becomes very different. Then narratives don't work,
Sure.
right? We sell entertainment, right? Who do we, what are we asking from you? Are we asking cash from you, or are we asking your time? And by the way, time is unfortunately a, a thing which is constant. 24 hours, that's it. Out of 24 hours, he or she or the family has fixed things to do, right? Usme se I need time, uska cash. हमें चाहिए. I mean, for which he doesn't even know what he's going to get, right? Now, do you go to a movie or do you watch a content to see your real mundane dull life on screen? Or do you want to go, I want to fly like a Superman? Aspirational, right? That is storytelling. The primary job of a platform or a brand, ideally all products or all interfaces or all screens are just products. It's the only job that we have is to take the stories or to take entertainment to the consumers. What we have ended up doing, we have ended up getting consumers to us. Ideally, that should not happen. Real good stories will find their own audience. There is no good or bad content. It is the perspective or the cohort or the audiences that it is sold to becomes good or bad. Like there is no good or bad human being when we were born. Similar. There is no good or bad content. And especially anyone who makes or tells a story thinks that he or she is making a Mughal Azam. Uske dimag mein wo hai super hit. Right? M.F. Hussain had made Amini years back. Madhuri, it was a big flop, but it was a beautiful film. Good or bad content, good or bad brand, hota nahi hai. It is how you speak about it, because it's a want in my business.
Right. So if you're saying the right things to the right person, so it's effective storytelling.
No,
And
I'm not saying you are saying I should be saying right things to the right person. Who am I to decide what is right for my audience? He needs to find his own right thing and the right time for which he will come to you. If he is not coming to you, maybe at that point in time you are not filling his need gap. Yes, the effort of a marketer, which in my view are the most, I'm saying it again on stage, are the most lazy people in the corporate world. Because for us, for everything we have an agency or somebody who will do our job. Right? No, no offense, but isn't that a little, how can somebody else from outside your ecosystem make a story for your audience? Yes, there are researches, there are insights, there are inputs. But even then, if the consumer is not coming to you, maybe he doesn't need you at that. And that is why your CPS goes very high.
okay. So if I'm trying to take away one or two key points from what you said. One is that there is no right content, right? Relevance is what.
There is no good or bad content.
Right. So it's it depends on a particular individual what works for them or not. And so therefore, it is just telling your story and then possibly finding the people who would like your story and looking at the premiumization of that storytelling. If I can tell back to the first point you saw.
Telling your story in context of the need that I'm trying to fill.
Okay, okay, thank you. Shri Krishna, you work in a vastly different environment, right? Where consumer needs are actually a lot more customized. So how does data and personalization sort of drive choices in marketing for you, whether it is storytelling or whether it is performance-led outcomes that you're driving?
Data is an ocean for us. Every customer does what transaction or whatever, right? So we go back always, we do a survey, and we understand from the customer that what is their expectation, what they want. They say, I can't go to the branch. Can I do the KYC is over. Can I do a re-KYC? Can I do a video KYC? So we need to innovate and create that product in the stack. And for that, regulator also need to give an okay. So 3 years back, we did that, right? And the customer is happy. The customer can sit any point in time and do a re-KYC. So we need to create that, and then the storytelling has to be part of that, exactly what is the fact, right? And the customer experience is built part of that. So customer feel that, I need not to go anywhere. I can just do it at a click. So that's what we try to do every point in time, that irrespective of any product, it has to match.
Okay, do you want to share a couple of examples of how you're leveraging this data to possibly bring alive the point that you're making?
Yeah, so I gave the example only like video KYC customer wants to do. So we know that who are the customer we are not, they don't did the KYC. They are in half KYC or they would need to do a re-KYC. So we reach this consumer and say, this is the problem. Right now you can't, use the account more than 2 lakh or 1.5 lakh. So you want to do a re-KYC and do this active so that you can use it. Otherwise, it will be a debit freeze for you. So if you tell the factual things and then say, boss, this is a problem, they will do it immediately. Then say, what is it? You keep your PAN, you keep your Aadhaar. I think that's the way, you have to be more persistent and very process driven so that happens, right? And let's say the customer has a eligibility to take a credit card. So at a one click, you have to create that experience part of the journey. If you just go and say that, boss, this is the product, no. Can I click 1 click, 2 clicks, the customer is happy, he get the credit card, right? So that's the way we always look at that.
I know we're out of time, but I'll just take 2 more minutes. Sort of the last question for you. You work in the FMCG space with and manage brands like Everyuth and Glucon-D and Nycil, which are iconic in their own way, but also exist in a fairly cluttered space. In that space, what is the role that brand plays while you are functioning in an environment where delivering business objectives becomes critical? So how do you sort of balance this, or how do you manage this challenge?
So actually, just because of the complexity that we deal with, even before you get to storytelling, the insights itself become very, very critical. Possibly, some of the points that Ajay and Abhishek alluded to in different ways. But the whole thing is that you really need to understand your audience well and tell them as much as possible customized stories which are meaningful to them. So I'll give you an example. For one of our products, we were creating content for different recipes which people can use. We ended up creating more than 150 recipes, and they were plugged into different consumer cohorts depending on their search history, right? Now, so while we are with sugar-free, for example, we want to enable people to enjoy food without having to compromise on health. But at the same time, how do we do it in the moment, in the context, which is meaningful to them and possibly is likely to invite an action much more sooner from them, is something that is there. I think over and above that, it is critical. There are a couple of other aspects which are very, very important, is that once you've identified that insight and you're doing it right, it's important, to also for the brands to follow it with actions over and above the storytelling. So how are you playing a role, and again, some examples have been quoted here. And I'll give you another example. For example, on Glucon-D, we ended up doing a mass scale just drive, helping cops in different cities deal with the heat of summer. You know, nobody is out there to help them. And by the way, we absolutely did zero PR on it. We did not do it actively because we genuinely wanted to help people who help us in a different way. But it organically got picked, you know, because people talk about these things, etc. And I think lastly, it's very important to stay the ground. You know, if you know you're doing the right thing, stories are not built, the brands are not built in a day, or in a month, whatever. You know, you have to stay with it. And I think, you know, once you do that, you know, you can hope the brand to be successful. I know we have run out of time here, but I was really curious, Devika, because you work with bunch of brands. So how do you manage the entire, or how do you guys manage the entire storytelling, brand, creativity stuff versus ROAS or performance marketing? I think that will also be interesting to know.
I'll try and be quick about this. So I think as a platform, we definitely face these pressures, right? More and more advertisers don't want to look only at addressing the creative and the storytelling part of it, but are looking at ROAS. But what we find is that, I mean, one, purely because of the nature of the platform and how content can be discovered so easily on glance, we find that we are able to build intent through our campaigns, right? And I don't say that lightly. So we've got solutions that are able to sort of empirically establish what is the intent being created when we're running a particular campaign, whether it's an FMCG brand or it's a digital native brand and so on and so forth. But I think there's a great role, one, that audiences play, and that help us not just talk to the right people, but also be able to contextualize the communication that we're taking to them in a lot of ways, right? The second thing I think that works very well is looking at how innovation or leveraging content, storytelling, as you said, how can we get the same message out organically, and then how do we, like Ajay said, sow the seeds, the harvest sort of follows, right? So I think these are just 2 or 3 strategies. Again, the solutions that we exactly suggest to clients depend on the goals that they are chasing as well. But it's really, I personally feel that if brands are not investing in, one, asking the right questions and getting the right message out there, purely running, narrative-based campaigns, like Abhishek said, is a bit of a constraint. And we don't necessarily see, we might get results in the short term, but we typically see that tapering off over the course of 4 or 6 months. So that's that. I think we really need to wrap this up. We're well over time, but I do want to thank everybody. We were talking about creative and storytelling and how that sort of drives business outcomes or ROAS for any campaigns, but there are so many more interesting points that came up today in terms of starting with asking the right questions, how we are able to leverage data to personalize, how we can look at creating, propositions and, for consumers and identifying the right audiences to take them forward, and then of course balancing storytelling and outcomes as when required. So thank you everyone for being here today, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Devika. Thank you, panelists. Please stay back for a token of thanks. May I invite Jahid Ahmed, Senior Vice President and Head of Digital Acquisition, Website, Content and Social Media Marketing, HDFC Bank, and Avinash Jhangiani, Founder and CEO, Leadership Development, Play to Transform Group. Do I have Avinash here with me? Oh, well. Okay, if someone from my team can quickly grab Avinash from outside, or we'll just proceed. Okay, can we have a nice picture, please? Okay, we have Avinash with us. Awesome. Hold on. Come, Avinash. Thanks, Jahid. Avinash can take care of that, no worries. Come. No, you... he'll present it with you. Yeah. Thank you. Did you get a picture? Can all of us huddle up together for a group picture? Yeah, group picture quickly, please. Come. Okay, Abhinav doesn't. Never mind. That's all right. Okay.